What happened to Aaron Rodgers? What does it mean for us as men? And did I overreact by processing this deeply?
The entire 2023.
Did that really just happen?
It was clear it was serious.
I'm actually shaking right now.
As far as what might have happened for him to go back down to the ground.
Let's find out. So sports has a way of getting us to emotionally invest. It's nearly a $20 billion industry. The National Football League in 2022, $20 billion. There's storylines for all of the athletes that are happening in their personal lives as we get to see more of what's happening for them, and it gets us emotionally invested. So much so that when our teams lose, there's memes all over the internet of men breaking down, breaking television sets, getting news of injured athletes and seasons that get derailed by injuries, causing men to emotionally crumble. But what does it mean? And what is the opportunity for us as men to navigate our emotional well-being better, but still acknowledging the fact that there's an emotional investment in this storyline that sports creates? If you stick around in this video, I promise you that we're going to get to that, and you're going to have a better understanding of why we get so emotionally invested and what the cost and the benefit could be. So what happened to Aaron Rodgers? For those of you guys who are not familiar with sports, or maybe you don't watch football at all, Aaron Rodgers happens to be one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. This year, he signed with my childhood favorite football team, the New York Jets, which, if you are a football fan, you can understand what a devastating curse and burden that is to bear. So this was supposed to be the year, and there was such a compelling storyline that was built up.
And he runs out of the stadium, green, lit up, loud.
He came out with the electric crowd and the American flag.
This is like the fucking 4th of July.
And he's got the flag.
Woo! On 9/11, like Captain America. And 4 plays in, he's done.
But it's devastation, and if you're a Jets fan, it's hard not to look in the mirror and say, why?
They had a special on HBO that showed you behind the scenes views of how the team was coalescing and coming together. They have a really charismatic head coach who is an amazing leader and has a compelling way of communicating a vision that honestly got all of the New York fans completely invested in this season. 4 plays into the season, 75 seconds of the entire season, the very first game, Aaron Rodgers busts his Achilles tendon and is done for the year. Immediately, you could feel the air being sucked out of the balloon in New York. I was here in Texas, and I was stunned, shell-shocked at what had happened. And the Jets went on to win that game. Eventually, I was able to process this, but the first 24 to 48 hours after that happened, I was crushed. And I was embarrassed, and I couldn't do much. I had a hard time working. I had a hard time answering emails. I was talking to my wife saying, is this normal? Is this okay for me to feel this way? I feel embarrassed that I can't seem to get my life together. And this is just about sports. It's inconsequential to my life. Or was it? As I started to look deeper, I recognized that I'd become invested in an idea, in a vision. I started to think about men's work, and I think about all the things that we teach here in this Rising Man container about communicating a vision, enrolling people in your vision. The head coach of the New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers, the social media team, the entire organization successfully enrolled the entire New York City area and all Jets fans across the world in the vision of winning the Super Bowl this year. And that vision was completely unplugged 4 plays into the season. That would be the same thing as having a whole vision for your life of having children with your beautiful wife, and she falls off the back of the cruise ship the first day of your honeymoon. Completely destroyed, completely turns the tides of expectations. It taught me a lot about expectations. For those of us who are Jets fans, and anyone who knows the National Football League, you know that there's something that seems to happen every year to the New York Jets. There's this shade of pessimism that we have as a fan base because we just can't seem to believe that we're ever going to come out on top again. It's been too long. We've had too many weird things happen along the way that have gotten in the way of our success. So there's this resistance to latch onto something. But when we all started to build an expectation to see a vision of winning a Super Bowl together, it was exactly the same thing that we do as men. And then our dreams get crushed when the rug gets pulled out from under us. Right now we're talking about sports, but it could be anything in your life that you care about, that you've invested yourself emotionally into. Clearly, I was hook, line, and sinker. I was ready for an exciting, thrilling season, watching my favorite football team. Whether they actually won the Super Bowl or not, an exciting storyline was about to unfold. And then it didn't. So what do? There were some amazing videos that were going around on the internet. One of my favorite ones was a radio host out in New York, and he was giving the ultimate pep talk to Jets fans 24 hours after Aaron Rodgers' devastating injury, saying, "Get up, quit feeling sorry for yourselves. We've got a whole season to play for." Basically trying to get everybody re-enrolled, and hey, adversity is going to happen. What are we going to do about it? Are we going to feel bad about ourselves and sit down on the sidelines and scrap the whole season and look forward to next year? That's what Jets fans have done for decades. We were so used to just looking ahead to next season. But what about staying present in now and not giving up on the vision just because there was massive adversity right off the bat? There's no greater metaphor for life. And I started to see my embarrassment transform into introspection. Why was I so affected by the outcome of this game, the outcome of this injury, this man on the other side of the country who I don't even have a personal relationship with? It's because I was invested in an idea. It's because I was enrolled in a vision. And when we get enrolled in something, we can't help but pour more of ourselves into it. And yes, this is something that's seemingly inconsequential like sports. And yet, it's something that is a great reflection of how everything else happens in our lives. Ways that we can be more emotionally resilient to these moments instead of crumbling. At first, I think it's important that we acknowledge the letdown of something like that, regardless of how silly it seems. I genuinely was embarrassed. I was like, wow, I'm an adult man and I can't get my stuff together to work today because I'm in shock. I'm in shock at what just happened to my favorite team. But as time went on, I was able to start processing it, and the best thing that helped me was actually talking about it. I was really honest about what I was experiencing. I had about 3 or 4 different men's calls in the next 48 hours after that. I shared on every single one that the most challenging thing I was going through in that moment was the devastating loss of Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback of my favorite football team. And most people didn't even know that I watched football. In fact, you might be listening to this episode asking yourself, I didn't know that Jetty watched football like that. And yet there was this thing going on for me deep in the background. And so here I am starting to process what was going on for me. And I started to unravel the story. And it taught me something so important that I wouldn't have learned had it not been for Aaron Rodgers having this devastating injury. The power of investment in a vision. And the resilience to pursue the mountaintop even when the avalanche comes. If an avalanche comes and wipes out the trail, what are you going to do? What was I going to do? Am I just going to sit back and wait 8-9 months for the new season to start all over again? No, I'm not going to do that. There's a whole season left to play. They play for 4 months. They play football. Was I just going to give up on that? No. I needed to re-enroll myself in the new possibilities. I started to look at, okay, well, what opportunities are here? There's looking ahead to next year. There's anticipating the amazing comeback of Aaron Rodgers. But what's there to look forward to right now? A shift in perspective. For any of us that are experiencing letdown, disappointment, busted expectations, even if it's around something like your favorite sports team or a relationship that you're in or something that happens to people whose lives that you're not actually connected to, re-enroll yourself in the evolution of the vision. Re-enroll yourself in new possibilities moving forward. That's the way that we can come to acceptance and moving on from devastating loss. I was grieving. I was straight up mourning. I was in grief for days after this injury happened. And the best thing that helped me was to be in conversations with other people about it, to reflect on my process, to not make myself wrong for what I was experiencing and what I was feeling, and then to choose my way through. Those were the big keys. And I hope that this helps you. If there's any of you out there who are suffering through some grief or loss, I know that even just in the sports world, there's devastating loss and letdown all the time. But if this is something that's pertinent to your life, something that will help you navigate life where it counts even more, then remember, there's always solutions. There's always a new possibility that emerges, even in the face of the biggest adversity. I hope that helps. Make sure you tune in next week for another Monday Morning Meditations here on the Rising Man Podcast. Peace out.